I couldn't see the representation, so I became the representation. Everyone close your eyes and picture a scientist. What do you see? If I were to guess, I would think a tall white man wearing glasses with messy hair. Probably not a Muslim woman wearing a headscarf. Okay, open your eyes. I am a scientist. I am a Muslim Mauritian woman working in science. I have trained in lab research for 10 years and now work as a science editor, publishing research stories. There are not enough women working in science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM. In the UK, STEM force women only account for 24% of the workforce. Now, there are even fewer women from underrepresented ethnic minorities working in STEM, and this is a prevalent issue across the world that urgently needs addressing. In the UK, there are at most 1% of Asian women who hold research grants, less than 1% Black women, and less than 1% women from mixed ethnicities working in research. And these are optimistic statistics. I myself am a minority within a minority within a minority. I am a Mauritian, Muslim, hijab-wearing woman working in science publishing. STEM work is crucial in our rapidly evolving world, with new challenges emerging daily, from climate change and wars to food insecurity and poverty. Addressing these challenges requires that we bring together all of our resources. And women, especially women from underrepresented ethnic minorities, are a vastly undertapped resource. STEM roles are thought to increase by 10% by 2031, compared to 5% of all other occupations. And this change really calls for bringing together all of our talent. We need diverse women working in STEM, viewing the world's problems through their unique lens of their experiences and backgrounds to come up with truly innovative and creative solutions to the world's problems. But why aren't there enough women from underrepresented ethnic minorities in STEM? Well, there are many reasons for this. Institutional factors, structural inequities, cultural restrictions, societal prejudices, persisting gender stereotypes, such as women don't belong in science, and all sorts of prejudices around the world are primary reasons accounting for the overall underrepresentation of diverse women in STEM roles. Multiple lines of research has shown that for students from underrepresented ethnic minorities, seeing a scientist or an engineer who looks like you is very important to feel more positive about pursuing the subjects at school. As Marianne Wright Edelman said, you can't be what you can't see. Now, when I started my journey in science, there wasn't anyone who looked like me around me. I've struggled with chronic imposter syndrome throughout my journey training in science. I felt like a fraud. Didn't feel like I belong. I was often too afraid to speak up with my ideas or questions because I was scared people would think I'm stupid. When I was a little girl, growing up in Mauritius, I loved science. The study of the human body fascinated me, and I knew from a very young age that when I grew up, I wanted to become a doctor. And so at the end of high school, I applied to medical school fiercely all over the world. But even as I applied to study medicine, a part of me resisted going into medical school. Because I'm thinking that being a doctor isn't compatible with married life or the role that is expected of a wife and a mother. When I was in high school, I met a guy that I felt very, very fond of. Years passed, and soon it was time for us to go to university. It's a crisp, wintry day in 2011. The sun is shining, and I'm on my way on a bus to a city I'm very fond of. My heart is skipping multiple beats, and the butterflies in my stomach are fluttering wildly. But I am so excited to go see my dear friend and person I love up in Manchester, where he's studying. After a 4-hour bus journey that feels like forever, I finally arrive in the city, and I settle myself on a bench in the city centre, waiting. Finally, he arrives, late as usual, and we take a walk across the bustling town. After 5 years of solid friendship and awkward glances, we let each other know how we feel about one another. The next step is obvious. I went back home that day, my heart filled with promises of joy and happiness. I was so excited, and those butterflies, they were fluttering wilder than ever. I was happy, finally, my happily ever after, not long before the big day. But that big day never came. Someone went missing from my perfect picture. Dead silence for months. I received a text message saying that he'd met another woman and decided to cut all ties with me. The end, just like that. In that moment when I received his call that he no longer wanted to speak with me, I felt like I'd been shot. Those butterflies in my stomach turned into fluttering knives slicing through my chest. My ears are ringing, my head is spinning, I'm lightheaded, my world is crumbling around me. I was young, lost, and broken. I had made this man such an anchor that without him, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who I was, and for a long time didn't feel whole. You see, I grew up with the belief that for a brown girl, by age X, she's supposed to get married and live happily ever after, right? That's what parents and society expects, right? I wanted to become a doctor, but held back on those dreams because I'm thinking that being a doctor isn't compatible with married life. And so I'd given up on those dreams. At that time of loss and pain, I was doing my final year research project that involved lab work. And I used to spend hours working away in the lab to drown away the pain. As I worked in the lab, I slowly began to realize that I really enjoy the lab environment, and the research and discovery of the unknown thrilled me. And as I watched cells grow under the microscope, surrounded by the constant humming of machines in the lab, I rekindled that childhood love that I had for science. And in that moment, I decided that I cannot let some random man dictate the course of my life and career. I cannot let the expectations of society crush my dreams. I cannot place all of my expectations of leading a fulfilling life on something as fragile as another human being. That incident was a real turning point in my life. And from that point, I decided not to put my abilities and passions on hold for some hypothetical marriage. And so I applied to PhD programs to do research. And after multiple attempts, I got accepted onto a PhD program with a fully funded scholarship at the University of Manchester. And so I married my PhD instead. literally. Pursuing one's passions and pursuing marriage are not mutually exclusive. I'm not telling young girls not to pursue marriage, but I am suggesting that we take the time to pursue our dreams and what we're talented at, because they take us onto incredible journeys of growth. One of the biggest steps towards increasing the number of diverse women in STEM roles is to first give ourselves the permission to pursue that which we love. When I started my PhD in 2012, I became part of a very small minority of Muslim women doing a PhD in cell biology. I spent an amazing 4 years doing research and meeting inspiring people. But throughout my time training in science, there were multiple challenges to overcome. My experiments in the lab would fail 99% of the time. Given that there weren't anybody who looked like me around me, I struggled to fit in constantly. It was also very hard to be far away from family. Whilst I was training for my postdoctoral research, I lived in Canada in 2020 when the pandemic broke out, and my immediate family were 2 oceans away. I lived alone in an apartment, and as you know, in lockdown, we couldn't even see our next-door neighbors. It was very isolating. But the most valuable tool that I learned in navigating those challenges is perseverance. Perseverance when those experiments didn't work. Perseverance in pushing forward, even if no one looked like me around me. Perseverance helped me find my own sense of belonging in the lab. Because I said to myself, that if I love what I'm doing, and I'm putting in every effort to do it well, then I belong here, just like everyone else. I spent 10 years researching and working in the lab, after which I transitioned into science publishing. Now, science publishing is yet another STEM field where there aren't many women, let alone women from diverse backgrounds, working. Now, I had no idea how to transition into publishing. And so I reached out to a female editor whom I knew had made that transition. She shared her story of how she moved from lab research into publishing. Hearing her story, I felt so inspired and empowered to apply for the role. But again, I had to persevere. I applied and failed. I applied again and failed again. I applied again and failed again, until 3 years later, I finally landed my dream role. Today, I'm working as a science editor, publishing high-impact cell biology research at a high-profile science journal. In my role, I have the opportunity of advocating for women and girls in science. I am also incredibly honored to be the first hijab-wearing Muslim woman to work at this journal in its 25-year history. And in all of this, I finally understood the meaning of my name, Sabrya, which in Arabic means perseverance. My journey in pursuing my passion for science taught me that pursuing our dreams and giving ourselves the permission to fulfill them takes us on amazing journeys of growth and discovery. Perseverance is a powerful tool to develop your own sense of belonging in environments where you don't see anyone looking like you. I firmly believe that one of the most powerful ways of increasing the number of women in STEM is by sharing the stories of those diverse women who are working in STEM. These stories will serve as living proof that a career in STEM is possible. Also, by sharing these stories, it will help bring together creative solutions of how to address the wider issue of how to attract, but also retain women working in STEM. It is high time we break the cycle of invisibility of diverse women in STEM. It's high time we change the narrative of what a scientist and an engineer looks like. Men play a crucial role in driving this change because men are the majority in STEM. And so I ask the men to think carefully about how you can support and advocate for this important change. The future of our planet depends on having more diverse women in STEM. You can't be what you can't see. Okay, but if you don't see the representation, then become it. Thank you.